Hello, my name is Vijay, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can configure Swagger UI on your API gateway in a microservice based application built using Spring Boot. So let me quickly show you my application structure. So I'm using multi-module Gradle project with three different project in it. One is the gateway service itself. Then I have two microservices, node service and user service. These two services are built using Spring Boot. On the other hand, the gateway service is built using Spring Web Flux, that is a reactive part of Spring. And what I want to achieve in this achieve using Swagger is I want to expose this Swagger UI from my API gateway, and I want to access the different APIs exposed by individual microservices. For example, if I want to access the API that has been exposed by the node service, I can quickly just select it from the drop down. Similarly, I can select for the user service and the API gateway itself as well. So how we can achieve this, and to for achieve this, I'm using this Swagger. If I scroll down, so it's Swagger provide two different starter dependency for our Spring Boot application. One is for API only. So when you add API starter module, it will only add the Swagger part that only create all the schemas and kind of process your controllers and all those things to produce modules, request, and other things except exposing the Swagger UI. So like this, if I call my uh, service with slash v3 API doc, it will return me the specification of that particular node service. So you can see I have a path slash v1, then I have another post path that contain the request body and all the definition. Similarly, I am exposing same Swagger specification from my user service, and both of these specification will be used by the API gateway. So we just need to select this drop down. So I will quickly show you in my code how I achieve this. So first I will show you in node service. I added Spring doc OpenAPI starter web MVC API dependency. So this will kind of uh, process my controllers and generate the corresponding Swagger API specification doc, or I would say the OpenAPI doc. Similarly, I added same dependency in my another microservice, which is again only for API, as I don't want to expose the UI from individual microservice itself. Then, and one thing that like this service is running on port 4041 and this is on 4042, and in my gateway, so the Spring gateway is built using Spring Web Flux part. So here I added the React to Swagger API documentation with, but this time I am using the UIs which contains both API plus the UI part of the Swagger application. So if I quickly show you, so if you look at this architecture diagram of the Swagger, so in the bottom we have Spring Boot auto configuration, then we have Spring OpenAPI starter common, and on top of that we have for MVC as well as for Spring Web Flux. So in our micros other services user and node, I am using the Spring Boot starter dependency, and for the gateway that is built using Spring Web Flux, I am not using the API. Instead of I am using the top one, that is starter Web Flux UI, which contains all other dependency itself. Like API will be part of UI as well. So I'm just using. So I added this Spring Open API starter Web Flux UI. and then we just need to configure it inside application.yaml. So if I go here, so here I just configured my API gateway to route request to write service, and in the Swagger doc config I added this is for the gateway service itself that I want to enable the UI and the Swagger path for the HTML which we will access. So like if we are configuring this Swagger, I want to access it here, you can customize this one, and this will be the URL where um, my Swagger UI can find the specification configurations. And here I am adding three different configurations. One is for API gateway itself, which match the v3 slash API docs, and for user service it's user slash API slash docs. And based on my routing configuration, if I go here in my Spring Cloud gateway, I'm matching this user slash API, so this will be get eliminated and the gateway will call v3 slash API doc for my user service. Similarly I did for the node service. So you should configure this according to the how you are stripping your URL in your gateway configuration. So mine is like I read this user service, then this is the root URL for my user service, and I'm matching. So whenever user calls my API gateway, I'm matching this pattern, and I'm stripping prefix 2 means I will remove this 2 from the actual URL, and then rest of will be appended to this one and sent to my service. So that's it, and once you configure all those things, you will able to see this drop down here where you can switch between different microservices from one Swagger UI. And I will share this code as on my GitHub repo, so you can find the link attached in the description. And thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.